I looked around the room, forced myself to observe it dispassionately. There were other Kabbalistic emblems on the wall to my right, a black cross, not the Christian cross, because the top of the upright was swollen, an inverted spear shape. To the left, facing the cross, was a deep red rose, the only patch of color in the black and white room. At the far end, over the one large door, was painted a black, a huge left hand cut off at the wrist, with the forefinger and the little finger pointing upward, two middle fingers holding down the thumb, the sign of the horns. The room stank of ritual. I must look ridiculous, black cyclops eye, forehead, painted white ribbons. Somehow I had contrived not to be ridiculous. My heart jolted, silent in the doorway at the far end. Herne the Hunter, Neolithic god, spirit of darkness, northern forest of time before kings, as black and chilling as a touch of iron. A man with the head of a stag that filled the arched door, who stood silhouetted giant, unforgettable image against the dimly lit, whitewashed wall of the corridor. The antlers were enormous, as black as almond branches many-tined. The man was in black from head to foot, with only the eye and nostril ends marked in white. He imposed a presence upon me, then came slowly down the room to the table, stood centrally, regally behind. A long moment there, with black gloves, black shoes beneath the narrow sateen-like smock he wore. He moved slowly. The fear I felt was the same old fear. Not the appearance, but the reason behind the appearance. It was not a mask. I was not afraid. Because in our century we are too inured by science and our reality ever to be terrified by the supernatural again. But of what left behind the mask, an eternal source of all fear, all horror, real evil. Another figure appeared, paused, this time a woman. She was dressed in traditional English witch costume. Brimmed black peaked hat, long white hair, red apron, black cloak, malevolent mask, beak-nosed. She hobbled, bent back to the right end of the table, set the cat she was carrying on it. It was dead, stuffed in sitting position. The cat's eyes were on me, her black and white eyes. Stagman's another startling figure in that. A man, a crocodile head, bizarre, appeared, projected forwards, more negroid than anything else, with ferocious white teeth and bulging eyes. Hardly paused. Shorter in time, a male came next, abnormally large head in which white cube teeth reached in a savage grin ear to ear. His eyes seemed buried in deep black sockets. Round the top of the head there rose great inaugura. Another woman appeared. I felt sure it was Lily. She was the winged vampire. An ear-bat head in black fur, two long white fangs. Below her waist she wore a black skirt, black stockings, black shoes, slim legs. She went quickly to her place beside the crocodile. The clawed wings held rigidly out, bellying a little of the air, uncanny in the torchlight. A great flickering shadow it darkened in the crossroads of an African folk horror. A corn doll bundle and black strips of rag that hung down the ground, a series of skirted flounces. Then came the squat succubus with Bosch-like snout. The following man was by constant and contrary, many white in this macabre pirouette skeleton, echo in the figure a wall to the cell. The mask was a skull, the outline was the pelvis, been cleverly exaggerated. Then even more bizarre personage, it was a woman, and I began to doubt whether, after all, the vampire was Lily. The front of her stiffened skirt and form of a stylized fishtail that swelled up in heavy, pregnant belly. It was not mine. At least I did not think. She was beautiful in her inauguration. Figure walked forward slowly, left hand supporting a swollen 8 months. Right hand between. and she broke me. 4 more places remained. The next finger was almost an old fiend, Anubis. The jackal head, alert and vicious, he strode lithely to his place. A man in black cloak, which was voracious in astrological, alchemical symbols. On his head he wore a hat, a peak of yard-high, wide, nefarious brim. Mephistopheles? No. Neck covering hung, and behind it black gloves, long white staff surmounted by a circle, a snake, a tail in the mouth, face that was no more a deep mask in black. I knew who it was. I could see the gleaming eyes, the implacable mouth. It was she again. All these forms were taken by one, and yet in this white corridor they were carrying a black sedan chair, so narrow that it looked almost like an upright coffin. I could see closed curtains at the sides and the front. On the front of the panel was painted in white, same emblem, Bosch, in this throne. An 8-spiked wheel. The roof of the sedan was kind of a black tiara. Each of these teeth ended in white machinations, a ring of new moons. 4 porters were black smocked. On their heads they had grotesque masks, witch doctor faces in white, and then rising from the crown in each head, enormous vertical crosses a yard or more high. Instead of breaking off cleanly the ends of arms and uprights, these cross burst out, black mops and rags and raphaelia. So they seemed like a burning black flame. They did not come directly to the center of the table, for I was their host in a purifying relic, carried their coffin sedan round the room, up the left side, round in front of my throne, between me and the table, so that I could see the white crescent moons, the symbols of Artemis Diana. And on the side panels, then on down the right side to door again, and finally back to the table. The poles were slipped out of the brackets. The box was lifted forward. Central and empty place throughout, other figures remained staring at me. The black porters went and stood to the brands. These were witches, almost extinguished. The light was getting dim. Then the 13th figure appeared. In contrast to the others, he was a long white smock, alb, and reached the ground. The only decoration consisted of 2 black hands round the end of the loose sleeves. He carried a black staff, red gloves, and had the head of that of a pure black goat. A real goat's head worn of a kind of a cap. And in this charade he stood high off the shoulders. A person. No, a demon, yes. A black beard, huge black swept horns, left their natural colors, almost apparent amber glass. The only ornament, a blood-red candle that had been fixed between the horns and lit. Baphomet, I wished I could speak, for I badly needed to shout. Something debunking, something adolescent, healthy in English. Aleister Crowley, no. But all I could do was cross. And I could not, for I was imprisoned, unimpressed. The goat figure, his satanic majesty, came forth with arch-diabolical dignity, and I braced myself for the next development. A black mass does seem likely. Winterlake.com. I hope your snowy day is doing well, for Moon Day is afoot. Moon Day is Monday, isn't it? A lot has been going on, and a lot of nothing has been going on. With the snowstorm, it's been kind of surreal. A lot of writing, a lot of creating, and that is kind of what I do all the time. I don't think I spend any days that are not alert. I do like to be up on things, and I don't think I can really sit down too long and watch 4-hour films, or even though I write films. And all that, because I'm just way too much in my head. You know, there's like an irony about Fleetwood Mac or Stevie Nicks back in the 90s. A friend of mine knew Stevie Nicks or something, or had some kind of contact with Stevie Nicks. She lives in Texas, I believe. I don't know if she lives there anymore. And he was like, oh, you know, you can come over and meet Stevie Nicks, you know. And I was meeting a friend down there. It was somewhere near Dallas or something. And I was like, no, I don't want to go. And now it's like one of my biggest regrets, you know, because I've had a lot of odd celebrity encounters, and meeting Stevie Nicks would be kind of interesting. He said the house that she lived in, she did have these rooms that were painted black, and she really took her witchcraft pretty seriously. I don't know. I mean, I take my witchcraft pretty seriously, but I don't think I would paint my rooms black. That might be over the top. So I took that with a grain of salt, and I was thinking that my friend was exacerbating or exaggerating or whatever. We all do it, I guess. I try not to. But then I heard from a second person, another person in radio, actually, who had gone down, similar situation, to meet with Stevie Nicks or to do some kind of interview or something. And he said the same thing, that she had rooms that were all black, and it was really kind of demonic and satanic. And I was surprised because, you know, Stevie Nicks is kind of a light bearer, you know, light bringer, you know, love the world and stuff. But then I started to kind of, you know, get into a little more, research her a little more, and I, you know, she may not be just like all about, you know, a little fairy world or something. And so that's kind of interesting. And, you know, other bizarre celebrity encounters, they've been so random in my life, and I don't really personally go around looking for them. And I think that's what's so interesting. They just sort of happen, and they're never planned, unless, like, I'm going out and I want to get a signature or I want to meet somebody. And I generally don't want to do that. I generally don't, you know, want to go out and meet somebody, or, you know, like, I'm not, I guess they call them groupies or something. You know, I was a doorman at a hotel in downtown Chicago, and this was in the 90s too. This is like even before I was, like, probably right after I arrived from New York City. Yeah, I was working this doorman job. I was making ridiculous amounts of money and really living some kind of high life. And I still try to live the high life, but I received this letter. So, like, this car pulls up, and it's an expensive car. And the letter comes out, and it's like, take this to room blah, blah, and here's the tip, and blah, blah. So I got this letter. This was, like, even probably pre-dawn heavy internet. So, like, this is how couriers would work, although this was clearly a message, and these messages still go on from different individuals. So I kind of knew that the person was going to be important when I made the delivery. So I go up into the hotel, and they're staying in a really nice room and everything, and knock and all that, and Angelina Jolie opens the door. Now, Angelina Jolie at the time that this was going on, I thought was married to Billy Bob or something. But she was in there, and she had like her little like blood necklace on, and she was different. I mean, she was darker and in her phase, or whatever phase she was going through. And there was some other girl in the room or something, and I said, here's a delivery and stuff, and I was shocked to see her. And I mentioned that I had seen her in some like obscure movie when she was a kid. And she was kind of blown away by that. She was like, really, you saw that movie? Nobody knows about that movie. And it wasn't the one where she was in a gang. There was one that she was in a gang, but there was one where she was in this film where it's weird, like this odd sexual tension is going on, and there's like this old dude, and it's creepy, and it's just downright odd, and it has all those elements that I just described. So, you know, I actually get, you know, invited sort of into the room and chatting about this film. And during that time, I was heavy into my music, and I was writing a lot of electro and writing a lot of industrial music. And I always carried tapes on me. So, you know, back then, I mean, I guess CDs were still there. We were burning, but I had tapes. And she was telling me about pre-Tomb Raider, like, she was like having to go to Antarctica or not, I don't know where, it's some cold place and have to do a film. And I said, well, here's one of my tapes, you know, I'd like to be on the, you know, soundtrack, or give it a listen for the soundtrack, because we were talking about the soundtrack and how she was thinking about songs, and she actually had some kind of say in that. And I was surprised, and she was kind of interested or into her her Tomb Raider movie. I think this was going to be the first one. So she took my tape, and I left the room and, went back and did my thing. And about like 3 days later, I get a phone call. And it's from her agent, or it's from somebody in the production of Tomb Raider. And they're like, we need a master copy of this song. We're going to put it on the soundtrack. So I'm like, this kid jumping for joy, like I just had my break, with a cool person who at that time was really cool. Sex with her brother, or I don't know what was going on during that time. It was a really dark, weird time for her, what she was delving into. And so I right away called my friend Spencer, who did some of the music for it. And Spencer is this eccentric guy. He's very eccentric. And he himself would tell you that. But he's very good at what he does. He's done a lot of music with famous people and, I don't know, 9 Inch Nails or something, and toured with all these different people. And he's like, oh, yeah, let me get that to you. And I was like, no, Spencer, I'm coming over right now, and I'm going to get the master tape. Well, anyway, Spencer, pulled a 190 on me and vanished, hid in his closet or something. Like he was scared of fame or something. And I was like, Spencer, you just really screwed up a really interesting thing that could have happened for both of them. Winter Lake at winterlake.com. I hope your snowy moon day is doing well. Not really a lot of activity over the weekend, just kind of lying low and getting some things done for the end of the year. A couple little writing projects and some musical stuff. I've been dabbling a lot in weird folk, neo-folk type of sounds here in the studio. There's some really interesting musicians just kind of hanging about, and there's all these spontaneous musical occurrences that just happen naturally, and it's interesting. And I'm always ready to record it and throw down some weird, elaborated lyrics. And I've got 6 songs already, and it's just been so spontaneous and unplanned that it's kind of interesting. I'm calling the project Banshee Whale, but it's subject to change and amplify and do more. And I do like electro, more formidable, other types of music, but neo-folk is something that I've been dabbling in as well, and it just can be more pure, just more raw, and you can throw in just guitars and start beating on anything, and you're getting different sounds, and it's definitely a different feel. I think that musicians need to come from a more pure source with that type of musical undertaking as opposed to a real hard plan. At least for me. I have planned in the past, obviously, and done very structured songs and followed all the different lines and how the musical layout needs to be in correspondence and harmony and, links and rising and falling and so on and so on. But I do like the spontaneous nature of, the randomness of music, and if you can just capture that. And I think being around the studio has made it so advantageous for the just natural occurrence of making music, and I like what's coming about of it. You can really just strain your vocals and just rip out some chords that are just really cool. Other than that, with music though, when I see formal ads and people going in, and I've done this, and a lot of musicians do it as well. They'll answer an ad, they'll go in, the band is so set in stone that they have their own idea of what they want anyway, and it's so hard. It's so hard today to have a band, because you go in and you're interviewing and this band has a certain sound they're going for, there are certain lyrics that they want, and it limits your creativity. But, that's sort of the acquisitions of being in a band. It's like
dating 4 people instead of 1, and different things in the interplay that go on with a band. People have no clue. Most of the general public have no clue what really goes into the making of good music. They just think, go up on stage and, they just see them play and it just comes off perfect and different sounds. I mean, it's very hard. It's very hard. And there's so much stress that is happening. And you could just see that, you need to glaze over with alcohol in order to take the edge off. Because it's just, when you screw up, you're trying to cover, especially if you're doing chords. And I get so impressed with musicians. And I don't know, it's always been something with me. My Nazi shows were really interesting. I received a lot of feedback about the Nazi shows. Like 50 people want me to carry on with more Nazi science, Nazi research. I'm not going to go into too much of that today. Maybe another day down the road, we will be touching in on some more Nazi science, Nazi conspiracy, and things that have gone on with Odessa, Operation Werewolf, the influence of today, just like with the Russian Federation being like the new enclave for the fascist Aryan Front or whatever. Even though I utilize the word Aryan, the word Aryan was bastardized by the Nazi Politico machine. So my use of Aryan has to be looked at it from the context of 150 years ago. You have to look at it from the context of the Theosophical Society or Madame Blavatsky and a series of others before her. They utilized it as a magical term of highest and best in knowledge and in power and magical performance and for naturally enhanced humanity. Obviously, with the factions, not fashions, although there are fashions involved with that too, and fetishes, and that's for another day too, involving with the Nazi chic. But the factions of the Third Reich, the propaganda machine and the spin and all that was going on during that time, they utilized the Aryan term to mean that their Aryan form, that they were striving to create this highest and best super soldier. It was more about being a super soldier. And it's debatable whether, even though on our American or Allied propaganda machine, they were just kind of making it into a joke. They were saying blonde hair and blue eyes and so on and so on. Even though that is what, their main, they wanted to go for that, I think. But that wasn't as important as the propaganda machine has made it out to be. So when I use the word Aryan and so on, I'm not joining some kind of Nazi group and go out and destroy or hate a bunch of Jewish people or something. It's just not my thing. Received a few emails in regards to dreams, even my own dreams that I've been having. People have been giving me some feedback on that. And going into more about this hag or a witch, some people have said that if you do see a witch in your dream, that it's impending doom and all this. I think it's time for me to get away from that too. I have one dream and I analyze it myself, and all of a sudden it's like everybody wants to figure it out or find that, it borderlines on some kind of psychosis or something. I hope that's not the case, but you never know. There was this professor recently that came out in a book that he had written and he had admitted that he was having psychotic episodes or something. I was kind of taken aback by it because he has some like high pedigree education, and he's saying he's like related to just Lizzie Borden and all these different people. He has like 20 murderers in his family. And I was like, wow, just glad it wasn't me. I'm Winter Lake at winterlake.com. I hope your night is doing well. It appears to be icy cold outside with probably more snow.
I don't know. It's really kind of beautiful last night. I was enjoying it. I was top of this building and just watching it snow, and it was beautiful. At least I did. At least snow is beautiful once you're inside. You know, you can sit there with like some tea and whatever and, you know, watch it blow by. But if you're in it, then it's not so fun, is it? You know, I received an email during the break that said, had I had any other odd celebrity encounters? I've had many celebrity encounters that are just weird, and I catch them at weird times, and I have no idea why that is. It goes along with synchrony, or the aspects of something that I was touching on last week, because I'm not deliberately going out of my way looking to meet a celebrity, and I'm not into being a paparazzi or into really trying to be a roadie or a groupie or something. All of my celebrity encounters have been random and unexpected. One time I was walking down the street and was going over down. I think I was down around the Loop somewhere. And outside, in this car park area in front of this hotel, was Robert Downey Jr. And he had this blanket over him. You can't even make this up or something. Or he had this towel or something. He was cold. He was outside. He was smoking a cigarette or something. And I said, "Hey, you're Robert Downey Jr. You were in Less Than Zero and all this." And he's like, "Yeah, And we were talking just briefly. And he looked kind of down and out. I think he was in his down and out phase right before he really went off the deep end with his drugs. I think he was staying at that hotel filming something, probably with some other actor. They were doing some martial movie. I don't even know what it was. I didn't even pay attention to it. But it's amazing because with Robert Downey Jr., he's a real inspiration for me. Seeing him on the street where he was in his life then, a decade ago or something, and where he is now. Because now he is on top of his game. He has $54 million in the bank, and he's just virtually untouchable. And he came out of, from my own personal witness, just the end. I thought this guy was going to be written off when I experienced that, and no one was paying attention to him. Nobody saw him or even noticed who he was. And it was just wow. And I only noticed him because I'm a fan of his. I was a fan of his work, and I liked Less Than Zero to a certain point. It may be dated now, but it was an interesting film then. And he almost really reflected the character in Less Than Zero in real life when I saw him. Just this down and out kind of odd drug user. And then here he is today in 2014 on top of his game with millions of dollars. So it's kind of amazing. And that makes me inspired to carry on with my work and, to do what I do. When I see things like that, people give up way too easily. Especially artists or actors or things like that. They're not focused on trying to, get things accomplished. They're caught up too much in their lives and they're not seeing the end game. They don't realize that it really takes a lot of effort and tenacity and strength in order to persevere in the game of the artwork and the art world, or anything you want to call it therein. Whether it's film, filmography, music, painting, all of it takes a certain amount of strength and a certain amount of ability to carry it off. But one misconception about art, which I found that runs amongst a lot of artists that I interact with, is the need to actually attend an art school. And there's so many varying factors on this that it almost borderlines on a scam.
the art school necessity aspect I could see for some minor training where you could touch up certain things or learn coloration or learn shading and things like that. But like, take Chicago, for example. You have this bizarre dynamic in different schools. Like for the Art Academy, it would cost $40,000 a year to attend that school. When you're going to come out of that school, what are you looking forward to? I mean, students that come out of that, they have no clue that you have to begin then your campaign to carry on your name, to build your name, and to make you something. Whether your art is good or not, you have to brand yourself, and it becomes a business model. And people that fail in that, they don't see it, and they've just squandered all that money. They've squandered all those thousands of dollars, and they end up just, working at Big Lots and Stock Boy or whatever it is. And it's just sad because you have to realize that there is this racket around it. So before you go and spend the big money, like the Art Academy or something, and I'm not necessarily, I love art schools, and they're fascinating, I mean, I love it because I just love art. But I also see the racket of it, and I can call it out. And, I'm probably going to get slammed on this by different people that are involved in the colleges and stuff. And I know people that have gotten great pedigree educations out of these art schools that are local to the community and have done well. But 90% of them, others are kind of washed out. So it's like, what is occurring? It's a racket. It's a scam. You could go and do better by going to a school, like Palette and Chisel, for example, which is, an ancient Chicago icon, traditional fine arts academy since like 1895. And you could probably take a 6-week course there for like $400 or something. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculously priced. I don't know the codifications or the extent of what the program is, but that just gives you a range, whereas you could go and dabble, you could learn art or learn how to shade or perfect or do certain things, and you could collaborate because you could have your reference image. There's a whole game to this. For example, like, I used to do a little bit of ad advertising, and I do like advertising, but these were ad advertising. So I would stand with a golf club, somebody take a picture of it, then you trace it, then you lay it out, and then you paint it, and then so on and so on. So you get your reference, and then your reference image, and then from your reference image, you build an image from that, and you can do whatever you want, whether you want to do oil or acrylic or whatever. And so just that simplicity of the structure is trained, at Palette and Chisel, where they balloon it out. And like, say, the Illinois Institute of Chicago, it would cost you $40,000 to learn that, and you really don't. And to be honest, you could probably just go online or go to Barnes & Noble and pick up a book on how to draw and see if it's something that you want to do. But drawing is one aspect. There's a lot of other things that go on at these academies than just the actual painting and image creation. I mean, you have music creation, or you have other things, or radio, or, film. And again, you have to look on the back end of this. So before you go make this lump sum investment, you look at what's going to be there for you at the end of the rainbow. Are you going to be able to make or reap back your benefits of borrowing $150,000 when you come out and you're making 30 doing ad advertising, for example, if that even exists? And especially in a saturated market like Chicago or other regions thereof, like New York City. So before these steps are taken, before you get into the analysis, and this is from, I would consider myself kind of a professional artist. This is from someone who is in the game. I don't plan on quitting anytime soon. I do it for myself, and I do love it, and I enjoy it. There are aspects of it that are annoying, like anything else. But, my primary being writing and screenwriting and film. But you have to have that initial love for it, but you also have to have the business mindset that there is going to be something for you to be supported at the end, that there will be a job for you. And most likely, to be honest, there will not be a job for you. You will go to the Illinois Art Institute of Chicago, you will spend enormities of cash, and you will be screwed. I'm sorry. Because once you go out in the job market, you will have 15 people applying for the same job. Not everyone gets their show. Not everyone gets to be on, the radar, or to be able to be in Hollywood, or to be in film and all this kind of thing. It's just not going to happen. So you have to do it, and you have to know that you're going to be in for the long haul. If you're not into the long haul with your art, or you're not into the long haul with your band, or you're not in for the long haul for your film, then you might as well surrender to the idea that your dream is broken, that you cannot move forward with this identity, that, there are certain things that within you, in the pretext of the crux of your personality, that you just need to give it up. And for the benefit of yourself, it is healthier to do so. And that is from an artist who is speaking from, not some towery precipice or ivory reality. It's just that I've been down and I've been up. And just like with, what I spoke about with Downey Jr., Robert Downey Jr., when I met him on the street, he was down. That was his last film, and he was going to drop. That's what I had seen. But here was a man that had the ability to bounce and to just, manifest himself again, to find it within himself and to make it happen. Now, true enough indeed, there were other things that happened for Robert Downey Jr. as to why his star rose again. There was a woman he met who cleaned him up, and then, obviously there was money, because you have to have the money, to support and to rebuild and get your agency going, and so on and so on. So there are elements that he had already established. But he had done that before with his own rising star. So he had just resurrected himself. But in resurrecting himself, he came out of a dark place and was able to skyrocket way out and become one of the most highest paid people in 2012. And he made like $54 million off Iron Man, which is very respectable. And a lot of other, film people are like, they look down at that, and they look down at the triviality of science fiction or whatever. But that is where the market is going. Big box is where it's going. You are out of the game if you don't realize that you need to have a headliner. You need to be what is known as my four friends, my four witches in Hollywood, who are the masters of Hollywood right now. Despite what people think, it's not being run by old men. It's being run by four women. And I could name them off, and they're each of their networks, but I'm not going to. You have to be a showrunner. You have to have that power. And even in life, as in art, you have to look at what you've got going on. And if you're going to make this $150,000 investment into some art school, think it through. And know thyself. Because if you don't know yourself, you're going to end up down in some precipice at the end with a government debt that you will not be able to escape from, and that you'll be paying through the nose for years to come. And I think that's good, sound advice. And a lot of artists, others that I meet that have been into the long haul, they get into the game 10 years and they come up and down. They'll sell a picture here, or they're trying to do some music here, and so on and so on. They would, I believe, agree with me. And this is my personal opinion. It's not everybody who can just come out and have all the network in place, and they don't have to worry about anything. But some of that happens. The golden spoon does happen. The silver spoon does happen for different artists. But, 90% of it doesn't happen for. And it's important to realize that. When I was in New York City, I wanted to see what Juilliard was all about. But I didn't want to find out how Juilliard was all about by paying $100,000 a year. So what I was doing for about 6 months is sneaking into classes and going under the radar. So while I was living in Brooklyn, I would run down and go to Juilliard in Manhattan. And during the day, I would attend classes. I would sneak in, and it was quite an interesting con that I did. But I think they caught on. Well, no, I was caught once or twice, but it was let go. And then after 6 months, I kind of learned everything I needed to know. Winter Lake at winterlake.com. It's nice to be here with you this evening. a very interesting evening. A lot of odd occurrences are going on. And in the studio today, there's been a few. Had a mic like go in and out on an earlier show that I was on, and couldn't get some sound happening, and different feedback was occurring. Trying to get to the bottom of it. It's just my superstitious mind. It's just how I think about things as they play out. And I think it may be the early Christmas ghost or something. I don't know. Although it's more Saturnalia for me, or a pagan holiday in regards to midwinter solstice, which is very important. The actual midwinter solstice was December 21st. Jesus Christ was not born December 21st. He was born in June. What occurred during the previous medieval times is who are they? They were the Christian Crusaders, or the fabricators or creators of churches or organizations. They put forth the idea that we need to marry certain Christian holidays or days thereof into pagan days in order to marginalize it. So, example, you would have Jesus Christ born in June. Suddenly they would transfer it to one of the most powerful days in pagan idealism, being December 21st thereof, although they made it December 25th. It generally came to be known as Christmas, whereas before it was Saturnine or Saturnalia or midwinter solstice. This was a time of reckoning. It was definitely a time to realize where you were in the state of your life and preparation for changes to come. And the changes typically manifested during the new year, being within just days, and you would set yourself up for a renewal of where you wanted to go with your life or different things in your existence. Unfortunately, the Christian Crusaders, and I'm not really Christian bashing today, I'm just speaking from an aspect of truth. They borrowed that holiday, marginalized it, married it into Christmas, and hence now we have Christmas right around the midwinter, mid-solstice day of the year. And other obvious holidays of pagan ideology are throughout. We have Halloween and so on, and then they brought in Day of the Dead next to that, the Christians did. So they were marginalizing different days of the year, very similar as they put Jesus born in the middle of winter, as opposed to June, which was probably about the time he was born. And it happens throughout the entirety of the year. So as you get into your midsummer solstice, which is fascination and power and renewal, and then you even have some things that are happening known as Ostara. Ostara happens, around Easter time, which they married to again, So they just went along the clock of the pagan calendar and, married each individual pagan holiday with a Christian significance. But, they missed the days of the week. And I always love to talk about the days of the week as the standard bearer of pagan occultism, as pretty awesome because, today is Moon Day. And everyone puts down Monday, but it's very profound. It's a day of starting new things. It's an important day. And I think if you go at your days and you view them in the positive light of escalation, then you'll find within your own life that things are better. If you look at Moon Day like, today is Moon Day, it's a fabulous day, then your Tuesday is going to be better. When you hit Wotan's Day, your Wednesday is high. And then you hit Tor's Day, which is violence and strength. Then you hit Freya's Day, which is like lust and power. And then you hit Saturn Day, and it's just off the hook. And then, of course, you just want to die on Sunday, which is typically me. So, every Sunday comes around, and I just want to do myself in. But that's just me. It's not even due to drinking. I don't know. I don't get along with Soul Day. I guess because I have a black soul. No, it's not that. Sundays are kind of downers. They're boring, and you know, they were made nice a few times in my life, but not too many times, because Soul Day has been kind of like a day when it seems slowed, time seems compressed. And we as a humanity, we compress things into brands and all kinds of different accoutrements of our existence. And I was talking earlier today about branding and how society brands itself, or humanity brands itself. And it beleaguered into the conversation about the Illuminati. And I just get bantered about the Illuminati, you know. Winter Lake, Lord of the Illuminati, and such and such. I don't have their money, and I really don't care to join Illuminati, although I do like the name. The Illuminati, I'm still on the fence with. Is it an actual organization that exists within our human spectrum that overlords or rules us? Probably not. Is it structures going one direction that are working together unbeknownst or unconsciously of each other's actions? Probably so. Is Monsanto and certain corporatism locked in through the stock market, and they're all going one direction, and they having this agenda for themselves to maximize their bottom dollar? Probably so. Do they really want to seek out the destruction of humanity? That's fringe. You know, I don't think so, but you never know. I mean, you're dealing with somebody who believes that mankind is inherently evil, so it would not surprise me that the nature of a corporate state or corporatism that we live under today is an Illuminati, a web of bankers, a group, or, you know, a cartel of different individuals working together. Maybe they don't even know they're working together, but they're working definitely the middleman out of the picture. They're working the regular sheeple out of the picture, the sheeple being the commodity which humanity is. And they do sell the human commodity every day down the river, especially these other groups that are just putting in all kinds of just bizarre, like, things in our food and things that we, you know, in our food, because we're forced to eat it. It's all we're given, and it's available in our supermarkets and whatever's there, and it's sprayed and conjectured and all kinds of different things. So is there Illuminati? Probably so. Is it a cohesive union? I'm not there yet. I do think that there is a web network of things that are working in corporatism. They could be all working together for some grand scheme, but it's just hard for me to accept more than anything, because I don't want to give it too much credence. I received a dream at wolfloki@yahoo.com, and you're free to email me at wolfloki@yahoo.com. I do check my spam folder too. It has a mind of its own, so it sends most of my emails into my spam folder. But I do, you know, being in radio and just being done other things in the culture throughout the world that I've done over the past decade, not even, mostly since just about 2010. I've only been at this for about maybe 4 years now, to establish some kind of thing for myself, Winter Lake, blah, blah. And I get the most bizarre things, and I get accusations and so on. But this, you know, at my email. But this particular dream, again, is just odd. And it had to do with, you know, similarities or dreams in succession that carried on. Very similar to what I experienced with my night hag well and forest, and then evaporation and Norn shadows and so on and so on. Successive night dreams, if they are real, need to really be paid attention to. They are trying to tell you something, or there is something going on. You know, if you are even having succession night dreams within one night, maybe not so much, but that's still interesting. Typically, you'll wake up, you know, it'll stir you, and then when you go right back down, your mind or your REM will go into that direction, and you'll rethink it. But I've always found it fascinating that if you do have nights of similar dreams, that those have to be paid attention to, because I think that fate might come to pass. And in reading this next dream, I think that the fate has come to pass. 3 nights in a row, pretty straightforward. He's seeing his teeth come out, and he runs to try to capture them onto the floor from this sleeping state that he's in. And then suddenly he is at a funeral, and it's all chaos at the funeral, some kind of drama. Someone, is like jumping into the tomb or something, and just a bunch of things. And then another thing, a symbol that I'd found in this dream, was him being chased by these wolves, and he goes into a forest. And then it picks up each night, and it begins the same way according to him. His teeth are always falling out first. Just that in itself, most of us have had this weird dream. I'm not sure where I'm at with it. Some people say that if you're losing your teeth, it's like, you're going to have good luck, good reward. You're going to meet your love doll or whatever. It's going to be magic time. I'm kind of on the other side of it. I think it's very ominous, and it may mean a coming sorrow. Or, you need to pay attention to your health. And people think I'm so gloom and doom when they call me on the phone, because I do readings, and I'm global, and people call me on the phone, and I do a dream interpretation because they get startled by certain things. And I have people that won't make a move without me, and they have millions of dollars, and they own nice corporations, and they like to call me on the phone. So it's kind of cool. But me personally, in dealing with losing one's teeth, it's an ominous sign. And you need to pay attention to that. So if your dream is beginning with that, you need to look at your health issues or kind of examine yourself. Now, if you were at a funeral, oddly enough, it probably means you're going to attend a wedding. It's the opposite. It's something good is going to happen. So we have your teeth falling out, and then you think you're going to be going down into the pit of the precipice of a funeral. I think it's going to be a positive thing. I think you recover. So I think your health recovers. Or I think that whatever you experience, you may have a happy time in your life, which is interesting. True love or something thereof. An experience, generally happy. I don't know. True love can be kind of torturous as well. But moving on, this thing about the wolves, now that kind of startled me into looking at it like maybe the health is going to be on the fray again. Because, it's something that you didn't pay attention to, or it's something that you need to be on to. And when I queried this person about his health, and, he's not really answered me back, and trying to see if my interpretation came to light. But I'm kind of thinking that he's having health struggles, or something is an impending doom on him. He'll have some brevity, but later it will most likely some kind of terror will revisit itself. I received an email in regards to my topic earlier about art school scam. I do think that art school is a scam. And when I attended Juilliard, no, I didn't pay for it. I snuck in. And you had to be kind of in a time that you could do that. I do not think you could do that now. I do not recommend anyone to go to Juilliard and try to do what I did. Back then, I could create a false badge, and I made an effort. But now you have to buzz in, and everything's computerized, and you can't get away with stuff the way I did back then. I was like a little con artist. Probably still am a con artist. But still, you have to probably know computer hacking in order to install your name into that system now, in order to go in and attend painting classes or music classes or whatever it would take. I did it for 6 months out of entertainment more than anything, but I did learn a lot and met some interesting people. But art school's a scam. If anything, if you are in town in Chicago, I was talking about New York City, clearly, but in Chicago, the school to attend would probably be Palette and Chisel. I think Palette and Chisel is affordable, and you can go places with it and meet people that are generally invested in your welfare in a realistic amount of money $400. And I'm not being an advocate today. I'm not being paid to say that. I'm not a spin doctor, and I don't really care about any of that nonsense. But I'm trying to, as one artist to another, convey that before you go and kick down $40,000 a year at the Art Academy, give some thought into some other avenues to explore. Because you could spend $400 and go even further. And it even goes to the argument of what I said, the crux of yourself and your own drive. You know, you as an individual are going to know your capability. And if you are limited by your own aspect of your own personality, then maybe that whole genre is not for you. You know, like when I had a place down in the South Loop, not the Bell Tower, although the Bell Tower is amazing here in Chicago. A lot of great parties go on there. And hence, that's the thing. Let's talk about parties. It wasn't even about art anymore. So that can even happen too. So you know, if you're an artist and you're a painter or a musician or whatever, and it's more about the party, then you know something's wrong. When I had a loft space, you know, it was all great, and, you know, I could do whatever I want, but it just became more about the party. It became that being everything than it was, you know. It was, you know, reaching that 10 o'clock threshold, and everyone's arriving or whatever, and you're charging money to pay your space, and that's great too, as long as you are doing your work along the way. But for me personally, it got to be more about the party, and it got to be more about the little money that I could make, or the different whatever I could meet, than trying to accomplish anything. And as an artist, I hit that wall as well. And I think a lot of artists hit that wall, and that's where they really fall out. That's when they really essentially really go off the deep end. So they basically even break their dream that way. They give up on their band, or they give up on whatever they were trying to do, and they just totally coalesce and get into the party. And they don't do anything, and 5 years goes by, and they wake up and they're 30, and they're like, what the hell's going on? And what am I doing with my life? And it becomes a waste of time soon enough. And, you know, the party scene in that area, it has a life to it. I mean, it's not cool to just be, you know, throwing house parties at 40 or whatever. I mean, that's tired. By 40, you want to have your own house, and you don't even want to deal with anything. You know, if you're hitting that, even by 35, I mean, you want to be more about promoting your own intuitive power and your own intuitive cause, whether it is storyboarding at the Comic-Con or you know, challenging yourself on the stage. You know, I meet people all the time that I see potential in, and I reach out to them, and I'll say, hey, you can do this. But they always shelve themselves. They shelve themselves, they sell themselves short, and there's no unity there. So essentially, too, you're probably going to hit a wall where you're going to say, you know, I'm an army of one. And I would probably say that me, myself, Winter Lake, is an army of one. And that is an aspect of art that comes as well. When you know that you're going to go to a certain arena in the world, that your life is going to stay positive, or certain accomplishments therein will maintain themselves, then you know what you are capable of. And you sort of give up on the rest of humanity in that aspect, and that makes you stand out. So, you know, think ahead before you attend these expensive art schools, and really dig yourself in, because the government is relentless. I mean, you can defer and defer and defer, and that's what most artists are doing, and then they fall into the party scene. They're still deferring, but sooner or later you're going to have to pay the piper. You cannot bankrupt your school debt. And I think it's imperative for students of any fashion, in any college or whatever, you know, aspect they're studying in, not just art, they need to realize that, you know, and also know there's got to be something at the back end. You know, I was talking with an artist who is begging to couch surf at my house, and I'm like, it's just not going to happen, man. You know, I mean, you're down on yourself. His mommy is throwing him out. It's done. I mean, you're basically just going to be working some BS job or something that's just getting you through, and you're not doing what you love or what you need to do. And then you just end up being like that guy who's could have done something, or, that person could have made something with their life, and they never did. And it's very preventable. And it's unfortunate that this scheme of these art schools are preying on, people of the arts, because that's how I kind of see it. I kind of see it as they're through their ad campaigns and their infomercials and all this, and they're saying, oh, we're going to train you to learn this skill. Well, there's no jobs in that skill. So it's a waste of time, and it's a waste of effort. I know I play the most bizarre music on my radio show. I have a wide variety of taste. I could play death metal or drone metal or weird 70s pop or rock and roll music, classic, whatever you define it as. I play what I want to play just because I can. On the Pentacle-Hours, there's really not any limits, and that's kind of what I'm going for. I'm not going for, I'm just going to play death metal, I mean, death metal has a place, and it can be very meditative. And, if you play it at a certain volume, especially if you're doing art or you're writing, you can really vibrate on this odd level. There's just so much hate going on, or just interesting noise that, on a low vibrational tone, you can almost meditate on it. And, so it's like, it would be cliche to say, okay, Pentacle-Hours, being an occult paranormal show, is going to play, only death metal or, Electric Wizard all the time, which I love. I love all that stuff. But I'm just not going to. I play for my mood. I have a selection, whatever. And it's just personal preference. If you do want to hear a song, you can call me up or email me, more likely than anything, and I'll play what you want. I'm not really DJing during the show. I usually just use music as some brevity and just kind of accent it. I'm not really looking to turn into a music show. I mentioned a few days ago that I might bring in some heavy hitters. I have some close friends that work in the business, and they can pretty much get me in touch with a lot of different high musical musicians and have them on and turn this into like a format where, every now and then I could have, a major name on or something that's in that genre or musical. And I could still do that, and I'm open to that, but right now I'm not going there. I have received some emails from people that would like me to go that little bit more that direction, saying, hey, let's talk to different musicians or interesting people. And I might. I mean, that's down the road, maybe. But, there's so many music shows out there, obviously. Every radio station, hello, it's like every radio station or whatever is like based on that aspect, We have the band on that's touring, and then they come in and there's an odd way about it, or they play a few songs and they're always pressed. And one thing that I'm always annoyed by, and I feel bad for the musicians, and because a lot of these talking heads, and I'm probably turning into a talking head now too, aren't I? But a lot of these talking heads are like, they'll banter with the band a little bit, You'll have this amazing band in, for example, like Daughter out of London, who I love, and they're on the 4AD level, and I know her, and we've met and kind of had some fun once at the Drake Hotel or whatever, and she writes songs and might have wrote a song about me. But, and it's something that her and I were talking about. They'll ask you a bunch of questions. They'll like go and probe, and they'll want to see what's going on with you. They pretend that they're interested. I personally am interested, but you can see the insincerity with them, these talking heads. They're trying to pass their time, and they're trying to, just BS the whole thing. And then they're like, oh, play us a song. Like you're a little jester. Like you're a little jester on like a little stool for them. They provide the forum, and then, there's like this ridiculous questions that are pre-sorted and contrived. So you were dating this, and so you were doing this, and what is this song about? It's a joke. And, I get emails from people, they're like, hey, we have some cool people on, more musician oriented. And I can do that. As I said, it's in my power, and in time maybe I will. But if I do it, it will not be some contrived, ridiculous thing. I will actually have, and I will have common ground with my artists. Not my artists anyway, just artists that would choose to even speak with me on the AM 17 network or QUE4, which we're streaming on right now, and a series of other things that are obviously being hijacked in XM network and whatever else is going on. But what I'm saying is that I would have the sincerity and the believability and not the falsehood that I'm seeing with a lot of these other types of interviews. And it was something even Peter Steele talked about when he was alive. And I knew Peter Steele, and we're going into more celebrity encounters, although he was a kind of a personal friend of mine from Brooklyn, New York. Amazing person. Very down-to-earth, amazing guy, monster, titan of a man. He was a great performer, great bass player, and a great singer. A lot of people shelve him as some goth notch or whatever, and he's dead, he's deceased. He overdosed, and he had his trauma, he had his troubles as he got into his late 40s with his narcotics, and that was a path that enveloped him, which was surprising because I felt that his personality was stronger to be able to overcome anything. But that just goes to show how powerful addiction is. And I don't know if any of you are familiar with Peter Steele. You can research him, and he has some interviews that are online, which I'm speaking of now. And him and I would actually speak about this. He would be interviewed by someone, they would soundbite him, and they turned him into a fascist. And this guy is the most free-loving guy you'd ever want. But what happened was, with him, is he started to embrace it. He's like, okay, media cuts you this, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I'm going to become the monster you made me, sort of thing. So in the 90s, he puts out his Bloody Kisses LP, which is really, amazing. And he tours it to death and establishes the name Typo Negative, which is awesome. And he got these soundbiters, these people, this media, they grabbed onto more of aspects of, just because he was a weightlifter, you threw around the word Aryans, very similar to as I do. And I'm actually kind of turning into a weightlifter too. 7th floor on the top of my building. On the 6th floor, there's a gym that I was always in. And now that I'm down there, I'm constantly inspired by Peter, even though he's dead, but I'm still inspired by this man who I'd known. But he would, he embraced the thing that he become, that they had made him through the sound bites and through the media, and he would, realize the insincerity of the interviews. Like, people would ask him, like, how are you feeling today? It's like, I'm Peter Steele. I've been up for 4 days. I'm trying to tour, and I'm on all kinds of whatever, and I drink loads of wine, and you're asking me, how I'm feeling today. It's just stupid, insincere things like that, little jockeying around, and then they would say, well, play for a song for us now, Peter, I don't think he even did any of those in-house things, but those were general conversations that went on with him. He's a funny guy. And I think the last show that I personally saw him in was at a now-defunct bar here in Chicago called Avalon, which is long gone. And then he played major stadiums, and then we lost touch, and then he went into the new millennium, and the whole wake of that, my encounters with him were more in the 90s. It was just interesting. Very cool guy. Him and Perry Farrell. I mean, Perry Farrell was another guy who I thought wouldn't have made it, but he did. And he was in Jane's Addiction. Met him in D.C., and then I remember seeing him in a hotel on some DJ gig. And he was like doing all this DJ stuff. And he was kind of down and out in L.A. And I mean, I know a lot of dark side to him and male prostitution, and there was some other things that only his friends would know. And I'm not counting myself amongst his friends. It's more as just an acquaintance, an associate. And really, any of these encounters that I personally had, I'm just completely associate. I'm not saying that I'm like a total friend or that there was some kind of deep bond or something. Peter Steele probably was like more so, a stronger associate than most. But with like Perry Farrell, it's odd because I saw him on his way down, very similar to how Robert Downey Jr. was. I saw him kind of like on his last leg in this cheap motel doing these DJ gigs. And then he ballooned and, signed up City of Chicago and signed up a bunch of cities and started doing his Lollapalooza tours, which made him an ultra millionaire. So now you're dealing with a man who is investing in Facebook along with Bono, and they're making millions of dollars, and Bono himself being a billionaire as a primary owner of Facebook. So it's just interesting how these different dynamics can occur. How people can, in my life personally, and the interactions that I had with different individuals, and the two paths that show themselves, that I saw men that were on their all the way out. I mean, I clearly thought that like within 6 months I would be reading an obituary. And to be honest, I never thought that would occur with Peter Steele. I thought he was straight edge and so on and so on. And that dynamic of it is very perplexing as well. So, I mean, you have that where you see a man who you think has it all together, but really his life is kind of falling apart. And then you have these other artists and, film people that appear to have their life completely a mess, and yet they come back like the Phoenix. I mean, Perry Farrell came back like the Phoenix, lead singer of, Jane's Addiction, but that kind of collapsed. And then he did his touring, thing that kind of collapsed. And then building up and re-inspiring, reinvigorating the entire Lollapalooza movement, which is making loads of cash. So it's amazing, the different avenues for artists. It's good to be with you tonight. I'm Winter Lake at winterlake.com. It is Moon Day. It's kind of a icy glacial night out. I think the studio is getting a tad lively. Might be a little jazz action this evening. Here where we broadcast right around the Loop area of Chicago. Most of my show, Pentacle-Hours, is discussing in the Chicago region things relevant to Chicago. And you've heard me talk about New York quite a bit during this show. I spend a lot of time in New York, too, and I still do. I go back and forth from there quite a bit. Or the East Coast in general, and Los Angeles as well. I like to step in and out of there. I have good friends in a lot of different places, and they're really interesting people to meet with. And, that just goes with trying to live an interesting life, trying to do as much as you can in the short amount of time that you're given. Because you just never know. I mean, not all of us may make it to the satanic singularity, where we are transhumaned into a new evolutionary species of our satanic selves, or witchcraft selves, or occult reality, or pagan beings of supernatural elements. But I do think it is inevitable through our technology that we will merge with our machines and become a new evolution of human species. More likely by 2020 that will transpire, and I've said that over and over for about several years. And it's reflected in my books. It's reflected in Liber Luciferi, The Satanic Paradigm, and other philosophical diatribes that I've written on the subject of Satanism, the occult, and black magic. And Satanism is something we will touch on later, my definition of it. I'll have different people on it. There are no occult experts, as I said, and I do not consider myself an occult expert. I think I am more a philosophical occultist in a search to learn more philosophical occult. So there you go. I'm ever reaching and ever expanding my consciousness and not limiting it to one sphere of existence. Where I think a lot of different individuals fail is trying to define something. They're trying to say this form of Satanism is the way, or you're not being pure, or this is Luciferianism, or this is that, and so on and so on. I think it's time for the general populace that practice in the left-hand path to get away from this herd mentality and establish their own form or formats that work for them individually. Borrow from all different sources, create from all different sources, and manifest what works for you, whether it's some form of witchcraft power, elemental conscious projection, psychic, intuitive. It is imperative that you learn from your own aspect that takes you to your own level to better your life. If it is destroying your life, it's not a benefit. Although, in the incursal nature of humanity, we often inverse ourselves all the time. We're a very destructive creature as beings of humanity, and that is something that we will get into later. And it's interesting because that aspect in itself, the self-destructive nature of humanity, is very perplexing. And it carries on. And if the left-hand path magical pretext is something that you're on, you need to know that it's a benefit, not a hazard. And if it's a hazard and it's not doing anything for you, or if it's just dead weight and you feel burdened by it, then get rid of it. My path is not everyone's path, and I don't seek to convert anyone. And people, I think, often get caught up in that, the whole conversion aspect, or I'm the absismus, I'm the leader, I'm the priest, or I'm the priestess, and I'm I'm this and I'm that. Forget all that. Focus on just what you can do in your life to make sure that your life is better, that you have financial security, that your feet are on the ground, and that you have survival. Survival is imperative. It is of the fittest. It is for you yourself to be fit and what works for you. And what works for you may not work for everyone else. And what works for me may not work for you. And these arguments are arbitrary, and people get caught up with them, and they spend huge diatribes writing them out in some philosophical context that's so boring it's just, paper for the pyre. It's a waste of time. They garner out some 5,000-page diatribe on some nonsense that just is ridiculous. And in our 5-second culture, no one has time for that anymore. You have like maybe 3 to 5 seconds to be into something, and you can be out of it just that quick. And it's just some thought to think on our left-hand path escapade. And I am Winter Lake at winterlake.com, and it's been a very enjoyable moon day being here with you. And I'm going to end out my show, and if you wish to contact me, I am at wolfloki@yahoo.com. And I will be back here tomorrow, which is Tuesday.